The neon lights of Vortex 9 space station flickered in rhythm with the hum of distant starships. The station was alive, filled with travelers, traders, and adventurers from hundreds of worlds. In the middle of all this chaos, a small bar called the Starfire Lounge buzzed louder than most. It was a place where humans and aliens mingled, drank, laughed, and sometimes fought. Tonight, the bar would witness something it would never forget. At a corner table sat a woman, calm and quiet. Her hair was dark, her eyes sharp, and her presence seemed to demand attention, even though she tried to be unnoticed. Her name was Celine, though nobody in the bar knew it yet. She sipped her drink slowly, her movements smooth like water flowing over rocks. There was something unusual about her, something almost ancient, but no one guessed it. A group of aliens entered the bar, laughing loudly. They were a mix of species, some tall and scaly, others short with glowing eyes. Behind them came a few humans, clearly following the aliens. They were drunk, loud, and full of arrogance. "Hey, lady," one of the aliens called, slamming his claw on the table near Selene. "You sitting here alone? You don't belong here." Selene did not flinch. She simply raised an eyebrow and looked at him, her gaze calm but penetrating. Another alien leaned closer, sniffing the air around her. "What are you hiding? Are you scared of us?" The humans laughed. One of them stepped forward and tried to snatch her drink. "Let's see how tough you really are," he said. Celine's lips curved into a faint smile. She said nothing. Her silence alone was enough to make some pause, but they ignored it. The first alien reached out to grab her arm. This time, Celine's reaction was subtle but frightening. Her eyes glowed for a brief second, a red glow that flickered like fire, and the air seemed to chill. Every patron in the bar felt it, even if they couldn't explain why. The alien froze, his hand in midair. What is that?" he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. But the others laughed, thinking it was a trick of the lights or their imagination. They moved closer, trying to intimidate her. "You think we are afraid of a quiet little girl?" one of the humans sneered. Selene set her drink down. Slowly she stood. Her movements were smooth, almost hypnotic. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She simply moved, and yet every step seemed full of power. The aliens took a step back, suddenly aware of something dangerous. But it was too late. Celine's hand moved faster than any eye could follow. The first alien was thrown across the bar, landing with a heavy thud. Drinks spilled, tables rattled, and screams erupted. The humans tried to grab her, but she sidestepped them effortlessly. Her strength was unnatural. Her speed was impossible. The bar fell silent except for the heavy breathing of those who had dared to harass her. "You should have left me alone," Selene said, her voice soft but cold, almost like ice. The sound made the hair on the back of every neck stand up. The patrons stared in awe and fear. They had heard stories, legends whispered across the galaxy, stories of a being who lived for centuries, who could fight hundreds at once, and who never seemed to age. But they never believed those stories were real. Not until now. One of the aliens, trembling, tried to speak. "We didn't mean—" Celine's eyes flared again, brighter this time. She didn't even touch him, but he fell to the ground as if struck by an invisible force. The other humans froze. Some patrons began to cheer quietly, admiring her power, but most were terrified. Nobody dared step forward. A shadow moved in the back of the bar. A tall, hooded alien observed everything silently. His glowing eyes reflected curiosity, not fear. He knew her, or at least he thought he did. He had heard tales, but seeing her in action was different. He smiled faintly, intrigued rather than scared. Meanwhile, Selene walked back to her table. She sat down calmly, as if nothing had happened. The air around her seemed charged, heavy with the weight of her presence. The bar slowly returned to normal, but the whispers never stopped. Who is she?" someone asked quietly. "No one knows," another replied. But she's not human. Not completely. The humans who had harassed her lay on the ground shaking. They realized that they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated someone far beyond their comprehension. Celine picked up her drink again. She didn't gloat. She didn't yell. She simply observed, letting the fear and respect settle around her. Her eyes scanned the room, noting every detail. She had lived long enough to know that power was best shown in silence until it was necessary. The hooded alien in the back continued to watch. He recognized her skills, her presence, and her calm demeanor. She was not just powerful. She was intelligent, patient, and dangerous in ways that few could imagine. For Celine, this was just another night. Another reminder of how recklessly some beings treated others. But for the bar, this night would be remembered forever. The patrons would talk about it for decades, warning others not to underestimate the quiet ones, the strangers, the seemingly ordinary visitors. As the neon lights flickered and the music slowly resumed, Celine took a final sip of her drink. Her red eyes faded to normal, but the memory of her power lingered in the minds of everyone present. The whispers continued, spreading across Vortex 9 like wildfire, and somewhere in the shadows the hooded alien made a decision. He would follow her, learn more, and perhaps one day confront her. But for now he was content to watch. Celine leaned back in her chair, calm and composed. The night had ended, but a story had begun. A story that would soon reach far beyond the walls of the Starfire Lounge. She was not just a woman. She was immortal. She was powerful. And she was far more than anyone had imagined. The bar had learned a lesson that night. Never harass someone you don't understand. And some beings in the galaxy were far older, stronger, and wiser than anyone dared to believe. The Starfire Lounge had returned to its usual hum of chatter and music, but the air remained thick with tension. Patrons whispered nervously, glancing at the corner where Celine sat. The neon light seemed to dance across her dark hair, giving her an almost otherworldly glow. Some dared to look, but most avoided her gaze. Fear and fascination mixed in the minds of everyone present. Celine watched them all quietly. Her senses were sharper than anyone could imagine. Every heartbeat, every nervous movement, every shallow breath, she felt it all. She could even sense their intentions before they acted. She was centuries old, and in that time, she had learned that patience was the greatest weapon. The humans and aliens who had tried to harass her were still on the floor, nursing bruises and ego wounds. A few tried to rise, hoping to regain some pride. One of the humans, bolder than the rest, stepped forward, holding a small blaster. "You think you can just sit there and scare everyone?" he shouted. "Show us what you are if you're so powerful." Celine's eyes narrowed. She did not move at first. Then, in an instant, she was in front of him. Faster than any human eye could follow, she snatched the blaster and tossed it across the room. The weapon bounced harmlessly off the wall. The man's face turned pale. "I warned you," she said softly, almost kindly. But her words carried a weight heavier than steel. The aliens around them froze. They had never seen speed like this, strength like this. Some of them had fought wars across galaxies, but nothing prepared them for Celine. She was not just strong, she was beyond comprehension. One of the alien spectators, a tall creature with translucent skin, took a cautious step forward. What are you?" Celine tilted her head, considering him. She could answer in many ways, but words were not enough. She needed to show them. In a single motion, she leapt to the top of a table, standing tall. The table groaned under her weight, but did not break. Then, with a graceful movement, she spun in the air, disarming another alien with a flick of her hand. The alien stumbled back, dazed. The bar was silent, save for the soft thrum of the music that seemed almost afraid to play too loudly. The patrons watched, mesmerized and terrified. Celine's voice broke the silence. "I am not what you think. I am older than your planets, older than your empires. I have lived when stars were young, and I have seen civilizations rise and fall." The words were calm, But they carried an undeniable authority. Even the bravest warriors felt a chill run down their spines. She moved closer to the humans who had harassed her first. Without touching them violently, she made them kneel with nothing more than her presence and gaze. Fear alone was enough. They realized that they were not dealing with an ordinary human. "You will not touch me again," she said. "You will not mock me, and you will not underestimate what you cannot understand." Then, without warning, her eyes glowed a deep red, brighter than before. The glow spread across the bar like wildfire, reflecting in the eyes of every patron. It was beautiful, terrifying, and impossible all at once. The energy in the room shifted. Some aliens hissed, some humans gasped. Everyone knew in that moment that they were in the presence of something immortal. From her lips came another whisper, almost like a warning and a promise at the same time. "I have walked among your kind for centuries. I have learned patience, strategy, and strength, and I do not forgive carelessness." One of the aliens, braver, or perhaps more foolish than the rest, tried to reach for a weapon hidden at his belt. Scifi moved. In the blink of an eye, his hand was stopped mid-motion. He fell to his knees, trembling. A hush settled over the bar. Every patron was holding their breath. "K." The whispers about Scifi spread faster than a starship racing through a wormhole. By morning, the story of the immortal woman in Vortex 9 had reached the ears of the galaxy's most notorious bounty hunters. Humans and aliens alike, all, curious, ambitious, or greedy, decided that capturing or killing her would make their names legendary. Scifi had already left the Starfire Lounge, walking through the crowded corridors of Vortex 9 as if she belonged everywhere. Her presence drew attention even without her trying. Beings glanced at her in awe and fear, sensing something powerful beneath her calm exterior. But she ignored them, focused on her own thoughts. Not far behind, a team of hunters arrived on the station. They were an unusual group, a mix of humans, reptilian aliens, and shadowy figures whose origins no one dared to ask. Each carried advanced weapons, gadgets, and protective gear designed to neutralize powerful targets. But none of them truly understood Scifi yet. Their leader, a human named Rax Talon, studied the reports on his datapad. "She's not just strong," he said, his voice tense. "The reports describe speed, strength, and abilities that defy physics. She survived centuries of attacks. We need a plan or we'll all die." A tall, scaly alien beside him hissed, "We do not fail. She is mortal like any other. We find her, we take her, and the bounty is ours." Rax shook his head. "Don't underestimate her. Survivors say she doesn't fight like others. She watches, learns, and strikes at the perfect moment. We cannot rush this." Meanwhile, Scifi sensed the danger before she even knew who it was. Centuries of experience had taught her that the galaxy always had hunters, always had those who wanted to claim power that wasn't theirs. She smiled faintly, not in fear but in anticipation. She liked challenges. The first hunter made a mistake. A small surveillance drone hovered near her as she walked down a corridor, scanning her biosigns. With a simple gesture, Scifi caused the drone to malfunction. It crashed to the floor, sparks flying. The hunter monitoring it gasped. "She's here," he whispered. "She knows we're close." Scifi didn't run. She moved with patience, weaving through the corridors, observing. She knew who was coming. She had seen enough hunters in her lifetime to predict their patterns. Their mistakes, their arrogance. The hunters split into groups, surrounding her unknowingly. Each team thought they had the element of surprise. But Scifi was already aware of every detail. The footsteps, the sounds of breathing, the faint scent of weapons. She didn't panic. She never did. When the first group cornered her in a narrow passage, she stopped. Calm, composed, and impossibly fast, she faced them. "I've seen centuries of beings like you," she said softly. "You should leave before you regret it." They didn't listen. One of the aliens lunged forward with a plasma blade, but Scifi moved before he could strike. She didn't just dodge, she anticipated his every movement. He stumbled off balance, and she flicked him aside with a motion so gentle it seemed unreal. Another human aimed a blaster. She caught the barrel mid-shot, twisting it harmlessly out of his hand. He fell backward, stunned. The remaining hunters froze. They had expected a fight, yes, but not this. Not speed like lightning, not strength like the mountains, not control that seemed to bend the very air around her. Seleni's red eyes glowed faintly as she took a step closer. "I do not fight without reason," she said. "But if you insist, you will learn the cost of arrogance." The hunters hesitated. Some tried to retreat, but the narrow corridors left them trapped. Seleni's presence filled every corner, every shadow. She was everywhere at once, yet standing perfectly still. A scaly alien hissed, frustrated. "She is not mortal." Rax Talon swallowed hard, realizing the truth too late. I think we underestimated her." Selene's movements became a blur. She disarmed the hunters one by one, not to kill, but to demonstrate her superiority. They could feel her power, more than physical strength, more than speed. It was intelligence, strategy, and centuries of experience combined. She stopped, letting a few hunters scramble to their feet. "Remember this," she said softly. "You will not touch me, you will not harass, and you will not underestimate." The hunters, shaken and bruised, looked at each other. Some nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. Others plotted silently, vowing to return with stronger weapons. From a distance, the hooded alien watched the scene unfold. He had been observing Selene for a long time, but this was different. The hunters had underestimated her, just like everyone else. And yet she had handled them with elegance and patience, showing not just power, but wisdom. He smirked faintly, intrigued. Selene's reputation had grown, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. But he knew that even she might face challenges beyond her experience. Forces were gathering, forces that even an immortal like her could not ignore. Selene returned to her calm composure, walking through the corridors as if nothing had happened. The hunters regrouped, licking their wounds, learning quickly that raw strength alone could not overcome her. She had taught them a lesson without raising her voice, a lesson they would never forget. Back in the crowded streets of Vortex 9, whispers spread even faster. Patrons who had seen the event began warning travelers. Some humans and aliens told tales in hushed tones. The immortal vampire who could move faster than the eye, who could disarm dozens without a scratch, who survived centuries and still walked among the living. Selene didn't care about stories. She cared about the balance of the galaxy and the choices of those who lived in it. The hunters had tested her patience and she had shown mercy, but she knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the stars, the true challenge awaited. And Selene, immortal and unyielding, was already preparing. The Starfire Lounge had seen only a glimpse of her power. Now, the galaxy would see far more. Vortex 9 space station was quiet in the early hours of the morning. Most travelers were asleep in their pods or resting in small lounges, but Selene moved through the corridors, as if the station belonged to her. Her steps were silent, yet every being she passed felt the weight of her presence. The hunters who had confronted her earlier were hiding in a distant corner, licking their wounds and muttering about their mistakes. None of them dared approach her again. Selene had not killed anyone, yet her message was clear. Underestimating her was dangerous. In the heart of the station, a group of aliens had gathered near a market. They had heard the stories, the whispers of the immortal vampire who walked among mortals. Curiosity, pride, and fear drove them to seek her out. "Show us your strength," one alien demanded, claws glinting in the dim light. "We want proof that these stories are true." Selene appeared from the shadows, her dark hair framing her pale, perfect face. She did not raise her voice. She did not rush. She simply stood, calm and composed. "You seek strength," she said softly. "Do you understand what strength truly means?" The aliens hissed and muttered, impatient. They thought strength was violence, weapons, or numbers. Selene smiled faintly. Their arrogance would teach them a lesson. A young human trader stepped forward, trying to act brave. "We've faced warriors before. We're not afraid of you." Celine's eyes glowed faintly red. She did not attack, but the young human froze. He could feel her power pressing against him like an invisible wall. His knees weakened and fear ran through him like icy water. "Fear is not weakness," Celine said quietly. "It is respect. Respect for what you do not understand. Respect for the lives and power around you. Do not confuse arrogance with courage." The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. They had not expected words to carry such weight. Celine moved with precision. Without raising her hand, she caused a nearby crate to tip over, scattering harmlessly across the floor. The sound echoed, yet it carried a warning. She could destroy them all, but she chose not to. "You see," she continued, "strength is patience, intelligence, and control. It is not reckless action. It is knowing when to act and when to wait. It is understanding that every choice has consequences." The aliens trembled. Even those who had come to challenge her now understood a simple truth. Celine was not a being to be tested. Her calm and measured actions spoke louder than weapons ever could. A few humans in the crowd began whispering, "She's incredible. Not just strong, smart. Ancient maybe, immortal." Celine's eyes scanned the gathered beings. She sensed their intentions, their fears, their hidden ambitions. She knew that arrogance could destroy them, and she had lived long enough to correct it. "Leave your pride behind," she said softly. "Learn respect, or you will find yourself on the ground wondering what struck you. I do not need to raise my hand to teach a lesson. Your choices will decide your fate." A scaly alien lunged forward, claws out, thinking to test her resolve. Celine moved faster than the eye could follow. He stumbled backward, not harmed, but completely disarmed and humiliated. The rest of the group froze, finally understanding the power of control and precision. "You see now?" Celine asked quietly, her voice calm but commanding. "Violence without understanding is useless. Strength without wisdom is weakness. Do you understand what I mean?" The aliens and humans nodded slowly. Their arrogance had been broken, replaced with awe. They understood that Celine was not just a fighter, she was a teacher, a guardian of lessons the galaxy often forgot. From the shadows, the hooded alien watched closely. He had seen her handle the hunters before, and now he saw her influence a larger group. Celine moved quietly through the crowded corridors of Vortex 9, her eyes sharp and observant. The events of the past days had sent whispers across the station. The hunters had been humbled, the arrogant aliens had learned fear and respect, and now a new challenge approached. She could feel it in the currents of energy flowing through the station, in the vibrations of the distant starships. Something powerful was coming, something that even she had to prepare for. Her long life had taught her one simple truth: preparation was the key to survival. She had survived centuries not by brute force alone, but by strategy, intelligence, and knowing when to act. And this new challenge would require all of her skills. Celine reached a hidden chamber deep within the station, a place few knew existed. It was a quiet sanctuary, lined with ancient artifacts, maps of the galaxy, and tools from civilizations long forgotten. Here, she began her planning. She traced the paths of potential threats across the galaxy, studied their strengths, and predicted their strategies. But Celine was not alone in her preparation. She had allies, humans and aliens who had survived her lessons, those who respected her power and intelligence. They were willing to learn, to train, and to follow her guidance. One of her human allies, a young engineer named Terran, approached her nervously. "Celine, the reports are getting worse. The fleet approaching is larger than anything the galaxy has seen in decades." Celine's red eyes glimmered faintly. "I know," she said calmly. "That is why we train. That is why we prepare. Fear without preparation is useless. Intelligence without action is meaningless." Terran nodded. He had learned much from her already. Patience, observation, and the quiet power of restraint. He trusted her completely. Scifi moved among her allies, demonstrating techniques and strategies. She taught them how to anticipate attacks, how to use the environment to their advantage, and how to strike with precision. Even those who had once mocked her now followed her guidance with unwavering attention. The aliens in her group, a mix of species, watched and learned. They had once believed that raw strength was all that mattered. Scifi showed them otherwise. Strength was important, yes, but strategy, timing, and unity were far stronger weapons than claws, teeth, or guns. As the group trained, Scifi considered the approaching threat. The fleet was powerful, but they were predictable in many ways. They relied on numbers, firepower, and fear. Scifi's strength lay in unpredictability, patience, and understanding her opponents. She had survived countless civilizations and wars. She would survive this one too. Night fell on Vortex 9, and the station glowed with the lights of distant stars. Scifi stood on a balcony overlooking the city, her cloak fluttering in the artificial wind. The whispers of the galaxy reached her. Ears even hear messages from distant allies, reports of incoming fleets, and rumors of resistance. The hooded alien from earlier appeared beside her, stepping silently. "You prepare well," he said, his voice low. "But even you cannot anticipate everything. What if they are smarter than you expect?" Scifi did not flinch. "I do not rely on luck," she said softly. "I rely on observation, knowledge, and adaptability. They may surprise me, but they will not defeat me through arrogance. That is a guarantee." He nodded, still curious. He had observed her strength, her strategy, and her ability to inspire fear and respect. But he knew that the galaxy had dangers that even she had not faced, forces that could challenge her immortality and intelligence. Meanwhile, Scifi's allies completed their training. Humans and aliens alike had learned to move with precision, to act as one unit, and to trust Scifi's guidance. Their fear had transformed into competence, and their arrogance had been replaced by respect. Scifi tested them further, simulating attacks from multiple directions at once. She moved faster than any of them could track, appearing and disappearing like shadows. Yet she corrected mistakes, guided their movements, and taught them to anticipate outcomes. By the end of the session, they were no longer ordinary beings. They were an extension of her will, ready to face the unknown. As dawn approached, Scifi stood once again on the balcony. The first ships of the approaching fleet were visible, small at this distance but undeniably numerous. Her allies gathered behind her, ready to follow her lead. "The galaxy underestimates humans and those who respect them," Scifi said softly. "It underestimates patience, intelligence, and preparation. That will be their greatest mistake." Terran, standing beside her, felt a surge of confidence. He had seen her fight, learned from her lessons, and now understood the depth of her power. "I trust you, Scifi. Whatever comes, we can handle it together." Scifi smiled faintly, a rare moment of warmth in her otherwise stoic demeanor. "Together," she agreed. "We face what comes, we adapt, and we survive. The galaxy will learn that immortals are not invincible, but their wisdom can change everything," the hooded alien observed silently. He had not yet decided if he would aid her or challenge her, but one thing was certain. Scifi's legend was growing. The galaxy would remember her, not just as an immortal vampire, but as a strategist, a teacher, and a force that reshaped the balance of power. Scifi turned her gaze toward the stars, feeling the energy of the approaching threat. She knew the battles ahead would test her patience, her intelligence, and her allies. But she had faced greater challenges before. She had survived empires, wars, and hunters. She would survive this too. And when the fleet finally arrived, they would not find a frightened woman. They would find Scifi, immortal, prepared, and unstoppable. The stars above Vortex 9 shone cold and distant, but below, the station was alive, with tension. The fleet Scifi had sensed had arrived. Ships of all shapes and sizes, alien and human, filled the orbit. Their weapons glimmered with deadly energy, and their movements were precise, calculated. They had underestimated Selene once, but they would not again. Selene stood on the highest balcony of the station, her cloak fluttering in the artificial wind. Her eyes glowed faintly red, reflecting centuries of experience. Around her, her allies, humans, and aliens alike, prepared for the battle. They were no longer ordinary beings. Under her guidance, they had learned patience, strategy, and respect for power. Terran, the human engineer, adjusted his equipment nervously. Selene, they're ready. Hundreds of ships. Too many to count. Selene's voice was calm, almost gentle. Numbers alone do not win battles. Understanding does. Strategy does. And we have both. Her allies nodded, drawing courage from her presence. Even the aliens who had once laughed at her were now silent, focused, and ready. They had learned her lessons. Fear and respect were stronger than weapons when wielded wisely. The first wave of ships approached. They fired energy blasts at the station, but Selene had anticipated this. Shields and defensive systems activated with precision, guided by her strategic calculations. The attacks caused damage, but nothing catastrophic. Her allies moved like extensions of her will, countering the assault with timing and skill. Selene did not rush. She observed the enemy, noting weaknesses, predicting movements and calculating outcomes. Her centuries of experience allowed her to see patterns others could not. Every attack she countered was a lesson in precision, a demonstration of power and intellect combined. From the shadows, the hooded alien watched. He had followed her since Vortex 9, curious about her abilities and decisions. Now, witnessing her lead a defense against a galactic fleet, he understood why she was a legend. She did not merely fight. She commanded, she inspired, and she transformed fear into respect. The enemy fleet adjusted, attempting new strategies. But Selene had already anticipated their changes. Her allies moved in coordinated strikes, cutting off ships, disabling engines, and forcing the attackers into confusion. Every victory was precise, calculated, and efficient. Selene descended to Wao, the station's central command room, where her allies awaited orders. Her presence was commanding but calm. Focus on coordination, not aggression. Patience, observation, and precision will turn this battle in our favor. Do not act recklessly. Her instructions were followed perfectly. Humans and aliens who had once underestimated each other now worked together seamlessly. Each action was guided by her centuries of knowledge, each movement a reflection of her wisdom. Outside, the battle continued. The enemy fleet grew frustrated. They could not predict Selene's movements, could not anticipate her strategies, and could not break the unity she had created among her allies. Their numerical advantage became irrelevant in the face of her intelligence and control. A massive enemy ship attempted a direct assault on the station's core. Selene moved instantly, coordinating a precise counterattack. Her allies disabled the ship's weapons, forced it to retreat, and captured key systems without a single loss among them. The enemy faltered, and fear began to spread among their ranks. Selene's red eyes glowed brighter as she observed the chaos she had created, not out of cruelty, but to teach the final lesson. Power without understanding was dangerous, and those who relied solely on numbers would always fall to strategy and patience. As the battle reached its climax, Selene moved to the upper decks, confronting the enemy fleet's commander. He was confident, arrogant, and fully armed, but Selene's presence alone shook him. "You cannot defeat me," she said calmly. "You rely on firepower, numbers, and intimidation. I rely on understanding, patience, and control. Your Ari